Yaoshin's call made her really happy. He then notices that Nanami seems to be in a good mood and wonders if it's because of his call, making her glad that he called her. Just then, Nanami realizes that she never told him that she wasn't used to boys, causing Yaoshin to freak out as she indeed never told him, and he ended up hearing it while eavesdropping. Knowing that he needs to get out of this situation, Yaoshin reminds her that it's her first time going out with a boy, and considering that it's the first time of someone as cute as Nanami, he figured that she might not be used to boys. Nanami gets flustered hearing the word cute, and Yaoshin suggests moving towards their class. On their way, he wonders why Nanami is so bad with boys, as someone as bad as her must get plenty of confessions. He thinks that something bad must have happened to her, and even her friends were worried, which is why Yaoshin was particularly chosen as her training partner. Eventually, Nanami apologizes for making him sorry, saying that it's not that big of a deal and mentions that she always has difficulties with boys, but can't seem to remember the exact reason. Considering she can't remember, it must not be that important. Additionally, as many schoolboys are desperate for her kitty, she must have developed some difficulties dealing with them. Nanami then reveals that it was around 6th year when she started being scared around boys. Yaoshin figures that she must be just as cute back then, and may have seen so many boys that she can't remember the exact reason. Following that, he questions how she knew what he was thinking about, to which Nanami replies that even though it's only been 3 days, she's his girlfriend after all. This makes Yaoshin's heart skip a beat, and he begins to wonder what kind of face he should make while telling her that he knows about the punishment game. Nonetheless, he decides not to let her know and unconsciously ends up ogling at those Pokemon balls on her chest. However, she notices him having a staring competition with her jugs and hides them, thinking of Yaoshin as a perv. Yaoshin begins to freak out and starts apologizing, telling her that he had no ill intentions. But Nanami lets him know that she really hates guys' hazes, making his soul leave his body. But to Yaoshin's surprise, she then mentions that it's okay if it's Yaoshin, deciding to forgive him this time. He freaks out and thinks that this statement seems pretty unfair. Later that day, they both talked normally and spent the whole day filled with happiness. Eventually, it was time for them to have lunch together, and Yaoshin was happy to get 2 hamburgers. When Nanami asks if that portion is okay, he lets her know that it's more than enough. Nanami further advises him to open his mouth for her to feed if it's not enough, later getting embarrassed by what she just said. She then apologizes, telling Yaoshin to just eat his portion when out of nowhere, a boy appears, asking if he can have a bit of Nanami's time. That guy turns out to be the same person from before and asks Nanami about the guy sitting next to her. Nanami lets that boy named Shibetsu know that he's being a bit obstinate, while Yaoshin begins to think that he knows Shibetsu as the famous basketball player of their school, who like everyone else was rejected by Nanami as well. Shibetsu lets Nanami know that he's not giving him and once again asks Yaoshin about who he is. This causes Yaoshin to stand up and introduce himself as Nanami's boyfriend, simultaneously thinking that Shibetsu is huge enough to knock his sorry self down in no time. Even though Yaoshin is scared to talk to him, he can't imagine how scared Nanami might be and decides to stand his ground. Shibetsu mentions that they are attracting quite a lot of attention and suggests moving to the cafeteria. Once they are settled, Yaoshin begins eating his lunch in the cafeteria, and when Shibetsu asks if the bento was made by Nanami, Yaoshin starts devouring all the content before Shibetsu even gets the chance to ask for a single bite. Following that, Yaoshin compliments Nanami for her amazing cooking skills, making her glad. Furious, Shibetsu stands up and challenges Yaoshin to a duel, telling him to hand over Nanami if he loses. However, Yaoshin straight up refuses to duel with him, making Shibetsu wonder if Yaoshin is running away from a challenge. He further asks if a coward like him is suitable for someone like Nanami. But when he asks Nanami if she thinks the same, she refuses and tells him now to use her first name so casually as the only one who can call her that is her boyfriend. Shibetsu then asks Nanami if she'd rather be with an average Joe like Yaoshin instead of him, such a pathetic man who runs away from challenges. Yaoshin then adds that wagering on someone's girlfriend is kind of messed up and tells Shibetsu that Nanami's feelings come first. He further reminds Shibetsu that he was already friend-zoned by Nanami, making him even more furious. Lastly, Yaoshin tells Shibetsu that there's nothing in it for him, and that even if Shibetsu doesn't approve of them, they'll still continue to go out with each other, adding the fact that he is treating Nanami like an object that is why he can't agree to any of this. With that being said, the two of them prepare to leave, but Shibetsu stops them, asking Nanami what she finds so good about such an insignificant plain boy, saying that he can easily mog Yaoshin with his eyes closed. This makes Nanami walk up to Shibetsu and tell him not to insult her boyfriend, letting him know that Yaoshin is a far better person than someone like him, and that she's done dealing with guys like Shibetsu. This brings Shibetsu to his knees, causing Yaoshin to figure that this seems pretty effective. Nanami further reminds Shibetsu that he was measuring the radius of her jugs the whole time during the proposal. Additionally, she remembers Yaoshin doing the same thing as well, but tells Shibetsu that Yaoshin wouldn't do something like that, later sticking out her tongue, forcing him to apologize once again. With that being said, Nanami suggests going away, but Shibetsu tries to stop her once again, and almost grabs her arm, only to be stopped by Yaoshin at the last second. He then tells Shibetsu that his being persistent will only make her hate him even more. Ultimately, Shibetsu gives up on using logic and tells Yaoshin to fight him, saying that he's sure Nanami would get it if he wins. However, Yaoshin tells Shibsu to raise his head as it's not a pretty sight to look at, and when he continues begging Yaoshin to have a duel, Yaoshin eventually agrees and asks about the kind of duel he wants to have. Shibsu suggests having a 1st to 10 3-pointer competition in basketball, but all Yaoshin knows about basketball is what he read from the manga. Nonetheless, he accepts the competition, causing Nanami to ask if he's really okay with this duel. Yaoshin replies that Shibsu treating Nanami like an object made him quite mad, but Nanami still seems worried that her twig-shaped boyfriend might lose. However, Yaoshin reassures her that he'd find a way somehow, and she decides to believe in him as well. Following that, Yaoshin tells Shibsu that even though he is fine with this duel, he is still a beginner and wants Shibsu to get 3 handicaps. But Shibsu is confident that whatever the handicap might be, there's no way he'd ever lose in basketball. Later in the basketball court, Hatsumi and Ayumi appear, asking about the commotion in the gym and if she knows what's going on. But before Nanami can say anything, the screams of girls simping for Shibsu interrupts her. Yaoshin also seems a bit nervous as it has turned into a big event. Nanami then notices Yaoshin in his basketball fit and runs across Shibsu, completely ignoring him. Her friends also join her, asking Yaoshin if he's planning to join the basketball club. They then notice the guns on his arm and begin complimenting his body, which is something Nanami doesn't really appreciate. She then gets between the two of them and mentions that they are staring at Yaoshin a bit too much. This comes as a surprise to both of them, and they end up laughing, reassuring her that no one is stealing Yaoshin from her. Yaoshin then informs them that Shibsu challenged him to a match with Nanami as the prize. When Hatsumi asks how he's going to deal with it, Yaoshin lets them know about the handicap, that being Shibsu teaching him the basics and letting him show 20 of his shots as an example. Afterward, Shibsu teaches him the correct way of holding the ball along with the proper positioning he needs to have in order to score a point. Ayumi then asks him about the second handicap, and Yaoshin explains that if he scores even once, it's his win, and if Shibsu manages to score 8 times, he wins. However, Hatsumi is still doubtful if Yaoshin can win with these terms, and Yaoshin adds that the third handicap is the most important, no matter the outcome of the match. Nanami will be the one to decide who is the winner. This makes the girls wonder if Shibsu was really okay with it, to which Yaoshin replies that he was okay as long as Nanami is the one choosing. Ayumi mentions that Shibsu really thinks that Nanami will choose him, while Hatsumi calls him an idiot if they take away basketball from him. However, Yaoshin is aware that it will be all for nothing if Nanami ends up choosing Shibsu instead of him. With that being said, the game starts and Shibsu asks Yaoshin if he's confident, saying that he is sure that Nanami will choose him. Nonetheless, Yaoshin prepares to take the first shot, and to everyone's surprise, he manages to score a point. Suddenly, a scream catches his attention, and it turns out to be Nanami who tells Yaoshin that she loves him. With that being said, Yaoshin prepares to take his remaining tries, but after remembering what Nanami just said, he ends up missing every other shot apart from the one he made at the start. Now, it's Shibsu's turn, and he ends up making all 8 shots, resulting in a draw. Yaoshin finds it pretty impressive and wonders what Nanami thinks of him now, but to his surprise, she gives him a hug instead, telling Yaoshin that he won. Shibsu can't believe that he lost, and when Yaoshin asks if he would consider recognizing Nanami as his girlfriend, Shibsu can't help but cry due to frustration. Later at home, Yaoshin explains everything that happened to Baron, who mentions how there wasn't a need for competition if Nanami was the one deciding in the end. Yaoshin says that he's glad Shibsu accepted his defeat, to which Baron replies that Nanami wasn't going to get swayed by Shibsu in the first place. However, Peach disagrees, saying that Nanami is just toying with Yaoshin. She further mentions that girls like her toy with boys, while her friends simply look like they are having fun. Yaoshin thanks Peach for worrying about him and lets her know that his girlfriend isn't such a bad girl. Peach apologizes and Yaoshin lets her know that he was able to cool off thanks to her. Furthermore, he decides to make more efforts to show Nanami how much he loves her. This catches Peach by surprise, and she decides to log off the game for now. After she leaves, Baron and Yaoshin wonder what's wrong with her, and he later advises Yaoshin to log out early as well so he can plan out his upcoming date. Later that night, he's busy sliding into the DMs of the hotties on Instagram when he receives a message from Nanami, asking if a kiss on the cheek would be fine as a reward. Even though Yaoshin is happy about it, he believes his heart won't be able to handle it. On the other hand, Nanami is taking a bath, and while washing her body, she thinks about all the crazy stuff she said in the spur of the moment. She really wanted to enjoy his reactions, but Yaoshin was too cool about it. Furthermore, she thinks that she'd like Shibsu to be more like Yaoshin as well. Shibsu is too true to his desires and doesn't listen to other people. Additionally, he even interrupted one of her few moments together with Yaoshin, which is something she doesn't really appreciate. Besides, in comparison, Nanami believes that Yaoshin is far kinder and gentler than him. This makes her wonder if Yaoshin doesn't want to flirt, as he was unsure about receiving a kiss on his cheeks. Furthermore, Nanami remembers everything he said in school and can't believe he's not embarrassed when she's already read by just thinking about it. She then starts thinking that Yaoshin might still want his reward tomorrow, but instead of a kiss on the cheek, he might request it to do it on the lips. Just as she starts freaking out by just thinking about it, her younger sister intervenes if she really likes cheeks that much. Following that, she complains about Nanami taking so long in the bath and grinning non-stop. Ultimately, she told her sister to leave and realizes that she can't stop grinning because from tomorrow, the two of them can finally be together with no one in between. But to her surprise, Shibsu once again blesses them with his appearance, complimenting them for being really intimate. Nanami can't believe that this is happening as she thought she could be alone with Yaoshin. In the end, she tells Shibsu to leave them alone and starts walking away, but Yaoshin agrees to talk to Shibsu if he doesn't act the same way he did last time. After thanking Yaoshin for giving him a chance, Shibsu lets Yaoshin know that it is him that he wants to talk to, which catches both of them by surprise. Nanami figures that he doesn't look like he's lying and wonders if switching from her to Yaoshin is his way of apologizing. Yaoshin then asks what business Shibsu has with him, as their match has already ended. With that being said, Shibsu decides to get straight to the point and mentions that he'd like to be friends with Yaoshin. Surprised, Yaoshin asks what he means, to which Shibsu replies that Yaoshin ended up winning the duel, which made him realize that he's worthy of Nanami, and that he should become friends with Yaoshin instead. Yaoshin lets Nanami know that he didn't think things would take such a turn, while Shibsu continues, saying that he might get a chance to get closer to him. Yaoshin mentions that it's hard to hate Shibsu when he's asking so frankly, and Nanami whispers into Yaoshin's ears, telling him that Shibsu is an idiot in everything except for basketball. Her whispering into his ears ends up making Yaoshin panic, and after realizing what she just did, Nanami starts freaking out as well. Yaoshin then asks Nanami if Shibsu was appealing to her maternal instincts, but she corrects him, telling Yaoshin that all he did was peek at her basketballs instead of the real ones. Nonetheless, Shibsu interrupts their conversation, wanting to get back to the main topic. This results in Yaoshin agreeing to become his friend, but lets him know that there's a condition. That being that he will never hand over Yaoshin to Shibsu. He looks at Yaoshin in shock and starts laughing, saying that they go really well with each other and that it's time for him to search for a new baddie to bag. Additionally, this whole situation ends up improving Nanami's impression of Shibsu. Following that, he asks Yaoshin if he'd be interested in joining the basketball club, and even though Nanami is glad that her boyfriend's efforts are being recognized, she doesn't want him to join as the time they spend together would decrease. To her surprise, Yaoshin ends up rejecting the offer, telling Shibsu that he doesn't want to decrease the time he spends with Nanami. This overjoys Nanami as Yaoshin seems to think the same way, and after telling Yaoshin to contact him if he changes his mind, Shibsu finally walks away. Nanami then mentions that they are finally alone, and mocks him by saying that he must have preferred staying with Shibsu. Yaoshin apologizes, telling Nanami that he didn't intend on making her uneasy, and reassures her that he'd never let anyone take her away like some sort of prize. This causes Nanami to smile, and lets Yaoshin know that his face is bright red, to which he replies that she seems embarrassed as well. Nanami replies that there's not a single woman who wouldn't feel happy about her boyfriend saying such cool lines. With that being said, she grabs his arm, telling him that it's a reward for being so cool yesterday, but mentions that they won't be able to see each other tomorrow. This reminds Yaoshin that Nanami has to go watch a movie with her friends, while Nanami hopes that he'll be able to deal with the loneliness. Following that, he lets Nanami know that even though he'll be lonely tomorrow, he'd patiently wait for Sunday, causing Nanami to grab him even tighter, promising to send him a ton of messages tomorrow. Later, Yaoshin plays some games with the others and gets told that it's unusual for him to make such mistakes. Yaoshin replies that he's going on his first date tomorrow and can't stop thinking about it. Peach advises him to be extra careful tomorrow, causing Yaoshin to think that she is finally starting to show support. However, she returns to her usual self and tells Yaoshin that Nanami might crush his heart by calling him all kinds of bad stuff. While Baron tells Peach not to say that kind of thing, Yaoshin lets them know that he's got everything ready and should be fine. Baron then tells him not to worry about the game and enjoy himself. He further advises Yaoshin to escort Nanami properly, which can raise his favorability. This makes Yaoshin think that even though being together will make him happy, it could be different for Nanami, and decides to be careful. Afterward, Baron asks him about the clothes he'll be wearing on the big day, but Yaoshin seems to have no idea. He lets them know that almost all of his clothes are black, and he might have some trousers and jeans lying around. Knowing that he's most likely doomed, Baron then tells him to take a picture of his outfit and show it to Shibsu to take his opinion. Later that day, he calls Shibsu, asking if he's free right now. Shibsu gets happy that Yaoshin is already relying on him and asks what he needs. Yaoshin asks if he can show him the clothes he'll be wearing on the date, and Shibsu agrees to take a quick glance as he's in the middle of his break. This makes Yaoshin apologize for bothering Shibsu, and he gives Yaoshin the heads up that he doesn't have much knowledge either. However, as soon as he sees a picture of Yaoshin in a fully blacked out drip, he freaks out. Shibsu then questions why Yaoshin is covered in pitch black, wondering if he's some sort of wannabe ninja. Additionally, he asks if all of his clothes are like that, to which Yaoshin agrees. In the end, Yaoshin gets yelled at by Shibsu, who advises him to go buy something else immediately. With that being said, Yaoshin is on his way to the clothing store, thinking that his outfit must be horrible for Shibsu to get this mad. Furthermore, he's relieved that Peach and Baron noticed, but after listening to their feedback, he's starting to become conscious of people's gazes. Finally, realizing that this is what it feels like to have no clothes, he regrets telling Baron that he had everything ready. Ultimately, he arrives at the shopping mall, where he'll be going with Nanami to get somewhat of an advantage. Nonetheless, he enters the shopping mall and notices that this place doesn't exist solely to play around. But after noticing the price tag having the same number of digits as his mom's weight, he realizes that clothes are much more expensive than he thought. Additionally, he doesn't have a part-time job, so spending his own money hurts. Now, he's starting to regret not having a part-time job and realizes that Nanami doesn't seem to have a part-time job either. Furthermore, he thinks how he'd love to work part-time together with Nanami, but is totally aware that he'd be constantly making mistakes while staring at her honkers. Soon after, he tries on some clothes and listening to Shibetsu's advice, who told him to keep the black jeans and buy a new top. He sends a picture of his drip to Shibetsu, who luckily ends up liking it. After he's done buying clothes, he figures that this is about as much help as Baron and Peach can offer, as they are dealing with a baddie like Nanami after all. Yaoshin then begins to think that he should take Nanami to a zoo instead with how things are going, but with these new clothes, he's all set for tomorrow. Just then, he notices Hatsumi and Ayumi standing nearby, which makes him wonder why they aren't at the movie theater. Apparently, they are trying to deal with some playboys who are trying to hit on them. While those boys reassure Hatsumi and the others that their boyfriends won't find out, Yaoshin thinks that it's not surprising considering their flashy appearances. Hatsumi then lets them know that it's not about being found out, but the boys keep pressuring that they're both a group of 3, which makes it perfect. Yaoshin begins to wonder who is the third girl he's talking about and notices Nanami with glasses standing behind the two of them. However, Yaoshin doesn't seem to figure out that the third girl is actually Nanami. Nonetheless, both Hatsumi and Ayumi continue telling the boys to stop as they all have boyfriends already. But that boy stays persistent, reassuring Hatsumi that her boyfriend won't find out. Yaoshin wonders if they are getting hit on and can't recognize the third girl as her outfits look pretty mature and tidy. He begins to think that Nanami might have gone back and that they could have added another person in their group. However, he is aware that he needs to do something to save them, but is sure that those playboys aren't the type to hear him out, but suddenly, an idea pops in his mind. As the argument between Hatsumi and those boys continue, Hatsumi almost loses her cool when Yaoshin interrupts, saying that it's quite a coincidence that the 3 of them came there as well. He then questions if those boys are their friends, causing one of them to mock Yaoshin for butting in. Furthermore, he roasts Yaoshin for looking like the discount version of John Wick, causing Yaoshin to get depressed. Following that, he notices the mature-looking girl and figures that she looks really anxious. Additionally, he notices that he has seen her eyes before and decides to go with his initial plan. With that being said, Yaoshin lets those boys know that he is the boyfriend of that girl, saying that it's natural for him to stop this. While Nanami gets all flustered, the boys begin laughing and mocking Yaoshin for choosing the plainest girl known to mankind. Nonetheless, Yaoshin reminds them that the girls already told them that they don't want to, so he can't leave her friends alone. This results in that guy grabbing Yaoshin's jacket, threatening to take his girlfriend to Pound Town if he doesn't stop. But just then, someone grabs that boy's shoulder, and that person turns out to be the mall's security, asking what he thinks he's doing. He then tells that boy to come with them as he seems to be disturbing the other customers. That guy tries to explain that he isn't doing anything weird when suddenly, Yaoshin interrupts, telling them that he is clearly assaulting him, asking them to call the police. That guy begins yelling at Yaoshin that he hasn't done no such thing, but Yaoshin explains that grabbing someone like that is considered assault. As the situation begins to escalate, that guy's friends start getting anxious and noticing that, Yaoshin asks them if they are fine with being charged for the same crime. They instantly betray his friend, telling the guard that they were just following along and that he is the one who told them to get on girls. Before wasting any time, the two of them make a run for it, leaving their friend alone, causing him to wonder when they become so cruel. Yaoshin agrees and tells him that those two did nothing, which makes that guy even more furious, but he's forced to stop due to the guard standing behind him. Eventually, he lets go of Yaoshin and is taken away by the security. Afterward, Hatsumi and Ayumi thank Yaoshin for saving them and giving him a soda can as a reward. Hatsumi also mentions that they would have taken them down if it became dangerous, which makes Yaoshin wonder if she's that strong. Hatsumi mentions that she always gets hit on considering the airbags on her chest and was trained by her big bro, or some might say boyfriend. Puzzled, Yaoshin asks her what she means by big bro, and Ayumi lets him know that Hatsumi's stepbrother ended up being her boyfriend. Apparently, her brother is the famous martial artist named Otofuke. Yaoshin freaks out after hearing that she is dating her brother, but gets told by Hatsumi that they are not related by blood and could even marry if they want to. He then notices that Hatsumi looks very much like the girls from romance manga. He then asks if he did something unnecessary, but gets told that he really helped, as if she came back. Even with a single scratch, her boyfriend would start asking to escort her everywhere. Ayumi then adds that they shouldn't underestimate Yaoshin either and tells Nanami to join the conversation as well. Yaoshin realizes that he was right about that girl being Nanami, as he could never mistake those beautiful eyes. He then asks Nanami if she's alright, to which she agrees, and thanks him for recognizing her even in this outfit. While Yaoshin wonders if she's so nervous because she was getting hit on, Nanami further informs him that she enjoys gal fashion, but likes these sorts of normal things as well. She believes that he must be disappointed seeing her in such a plain form, but Yaoshin replies that this looks super cute on her and lets her know that the gloomy roach fit he's rocking is what one calls a bad outfit. This causes the other two to crack up, but they reassure Yaoshin that he did pretty well noticing, as things would have turned out differently if he hadn't. Yaoshin replies that due to her glasses, he first thought that it could be Nanami's sister, but the moment he saw her eyes, he instantly realized that it was none other than Nanami. Hatsumi then begins teasing Nanami, but Yaoshin mentions that he wasn't sure until those two called her name. He then asks Nanami if she's disappointed, but gets told that she's glad that Yaoshin is a kind person who goes out of his way to help people. Noticing that she is starting to feel excited, Hatsumi suggests going on a date, but Yaoshin refuses, saying that today is meant for the three of them to enjoy, and informs them that he came to buy